Good afternoon. Can y'all see me? Can I be seen? Oh, wait. Now I can. Good afternoon, good evening, good all the things. Hello. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the See Us podcast ran by the Narrative Justice and myself, Shannon Hughes. I am your hostess with the mostest. I'm excited about today. It was not with pulling teeth that I had to bring on our guest today, but she is such a humble person and just here to do the work that she's like, all right, Shan, I will do it. I will do it because it needs to be done. And out of love for me, she didn't say that part, but I know that was implied. So very much love you. But we'll get to that part. Excited about today. As always, I'm very interested in highlighting the invisible, right? Like in invisible in the sense that you're not going to hear these stories. You're not going to learn these things on our mainstream media, not on our mainstream news outlets, etc. For whatever the reasons are. But you will hear them here, and the people, the things that we cover are very much embedded in our communities. Before we get started with our show for today, I just want to remind us that a student of my side elementary school or middle school, excuse me, was drugged a couple of weeks ago involuntarily. He was drugged without his knowledge by another student. The student told him that they had breath mints, gave him some. He put them in his mouth, tasted funny, so he spit it back out, put the other one in his pocket, didn't think anything of it. Went about his day and was not feeling well. Went to the school nurse, let her know, like, hey, like I'm not feeling well. Student gave me these things. They said they were breath mints, but they didn't taste like them. Nurse did nothing, did not call mom, did not, call the hospital like, hey, this kid took something and he doesn't know what it is and he's feeling ill now. Nothing, he went home and mom didn't find out that something was up until her child came home and he's sweating profusely and vomiting, projectile vomiting. And so they had to get him to the hospital. Nothing really happened there either. And no one contacted mom. Mom had to reach out to the school to learn anything. And as far as I know, as far as the updates go, is that the school tried to call the student who drugged the other student's parents, but couldn't get in contact with them and kind of just left it at that. The parents were able to sign the child out of school, which if they sign the child out of school, doesn't that mean they had contact with you? That's how I think that goes. But they signed the child out of school and kind of just skipped off into the sunset. Now, less about the child themselves. I mean, that was reckless on the girl's part. She should be held accountable for that. You should not be able to drug people like without their knowledge and just get away with it. I don't care who you are. But more so that this is a minor child who got her hands on Suboxone, as it was, later found out. And my question would be where the child got the Suboxone from. Like, did it come from the parents? Did it come from someone else? Like at the very least, CYF should be involved, as someone pointed out as well. But our concern here is that no action has been taken basically for the parents of this child. The kid is expected to just, kind of get over it. The child who was drugged is a young black male. The child who drugged him is a young white girl, excuse me. And that does matter. And not on the case of the kids, but on the case of the systems that govern them. So if you are feeling like you want to support, reach out to the mom, or do anything in regards to supporting the mom, you can reach out to my side middle school and give them a call and ask, what their protocol is for following up on drugs on campus. Why they don't ask all or require all of the students who come into the school to go through the metal detectors, because this kid did not go through the metal detectors. Why would you have metal detectors if not everyone is required to go through them? And then what are the measures for accountability for this student? I mean, not no charges filed, no nothing happened. Whatever accountability looks like, it has to be. It just has to be. So there goes, I'm mentioning of that we do intend to have Raven, the student who was drugged, his mom back on the show at some point. But if you do want to support her, her name is Raven Palmer. She is on Facebook and asking for any support that she can get, and you can learn a little bit more about what happened on our Facebook as well. So that's that on that. Today we're going to be focused on Carol Speaks. She does a lot of work in overdose prevention, and also she supports our family who are in captivity. Excuse me. She runs an organization called Ukombozi. Today I'm going to have a guest co-host, which is the second time that I've had a co-host on the show, which I'm excited about. I'm excited about this new format. We're going to welcome Carter Graves onto the show. Hello, Carter.
Hey there.
How are you doing today?
So far, so good.
Word up. Word up. Thank you so much for agreeing to co-host with me today. Super excited. I'm very a fan of the work that you do. I follow everything that you post on Facebook and the level of love, care, and dedication that you have for folks. And so Carter does harm reduction work. Carter, did you want to talk a little bit about the work that you do?
Yeah, I'm just a kid with a table, essentially, that saw a need that needed fulfilled in a community who is full of people who use drugs in nightlife. A lot of it is around music, but we distribute fentanyl test strips, Narcan. We teach people about checking their drugs, and then give them the tools necessary to keep themselves safe and then their friends safe. So it's a bottom up movement to just teach people how to be safe while navigating the toxicity of the drug war right now.
Word up. And so for people who would seek you out for support or would like to get involved, I don't know if that's a thing that folks can do. How would they normally get in contact with you or seek support?
The easiest way to get in contact with me right now is my email, and it's kmfksafetyservices@gmail.com. And we have everyone from individuals who use drugs to music venues across Pittsburgh are starting to reach out to train their staff, especially the way security handles these things, to be more people forward as opposed to acting like occupying forces in the very communities they talk about.
Word. That's what's up. That's what's up. Again, very much appreciate you agreeing to co-host with me today. I know this is a new space for you as well, but again, you do such important work that I thought not only should you be, seen and heard, but also I thought it would be a really cool conversation because you all kind of share similar worlds.
For sure, and I appreciate the invite here today, especially, highlighting us little guys with the least amount of resources who are the real boots on the ground here. We get into these small spaces, we change minds. Those minds affect venues. From venues, then get help from the city. And from the city, we get to actually ideally spread infrastructure and legislation that'll normalize keeping people safe instead of leaving them to be hurt on the streets. So appreciate the invite here today.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you said it like it's the small guys, right? Like it's those of us who are in the community. That's where the power comes from. Like that's where the powerhouse is. It's not typically the things that are most readily available, that you'll see on mainstream media, et cetera, et cetera. It is the people who are doing like that direct boots to the ground grassroots work, just doing the community thing, just I mean witnessing someone else's story is work, like making a phone call, doing those little small incremental things that literally is the foundation to power to community. So
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. I mean, if it wasn't for us little guys, PA is a prohibition state. Fentanyl test strips on your person are considered paraphernalia. It is a misdemeanor charge. To push back on that narrative, carry enough on me to get a distribution charge. I don't care if it wasn't for us little guys pushing that envelope, we wouldn't have gotten decrim in Pittsburgh. It's one of the final things Mayor Peduto did on his way out. But like that information came from us doing direct action,
Mm.
and we're important soldiers in this fight.
Yes. Yes. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. All right. All right. Well, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Miss Carol Speaks. Hello. How are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. How's your day going so far?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Awesome. Well, I see these pictures in the back, and I'm going to ask you about them in a second. But first, I want to ask, where are you from?
I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Homewood, born and raised.
All stuff. All stuff. All right. All right. What do you do, Mama C?
Boy, I wear a lot of hats, but what takes most of my time and is close to my heart is the work that I do with our loved ones in captivity and the work that I do in the neighborhood, overdose prevention and harm reduction.
Mm.
Um, um, Nobody should die.
Every overdose death is a policy failure, as we say in this work.
Yes, I mean it's and my community, we just started getting resources, um, fentanyl test strip, clean smoking. We just started getting these things, and it's really sad because sometimes it's your zip code on. And the reason why I'm saying that is because last year we lost 700 and I think 21 or 29 people to drug overdoses. Most were Black middle-aged men. So not sure because I'm not with the statistics person. I'm not, you know what I mean. The only reason I'm I don't know how or why I know it's happening. And I know well that it's happening because I actually helped to um, reverse 12 overdoses. And one just recently was a friend who I am I going too far? Too fast? Okay.
No.
So I actually drove past the man. I seen him laying on the ground. And I looked at my grandson and I said, Leland, you know we can't drive past. And he said, Mimi, just back up. So as I was walking, I was asking him, sir, are you all? And then I noticed it hits real different when it's somebody that you know. You know what I mean? Like I almost froze and didn't know what to do, but it's really bad. And the part that really pissed me off was there had to be about 20 people catty corner to us just
Mhm.
watching. Like nobody cares.
I
And
see a lot of that when I'm downtown.
yeah,
I check on every person laying down, every single one. Like, so sorry if you're sleeping, but in case you aren't, I can't walk by you. So I respect you for being able to do that as well.
yeah, and it just I just don't understand how people can be like this is not usual. This is not normal. And so I just want people to know it's not normal. And if you see somebody laying in the street, stop and say something.
Mm.
Hey, buddy, can I help you up out of the street? Anything.
The worst that's going to happen is they're going to get mad at you for waking them up because they were just trying to catch a nap. That's the worst that I've experienced checking on people.
Well, I'm going to tell you the worst that I experienced was I live in Homewood. I don't come in contact with too many white people in Homewood. And I was driving down the street and these people were screaming, Narcan lady, Narcan lady. So I stop my car, I get out, I walk over. It's a white lady, but she's blue. So I'm like, she's dead. Did y'all call an ambulance? They're like, no. So we start working on her. And I was there 15 minutes or more before a police car rolled up. But nobody said that she was a white woman, first of all. And what I tell them now is, do not say that you found somebody and you think they overdosed. Just say, I found somebody unresponsive in the street. Because if you say overdose, they're going to send the police first. And it all depends on what police officer that you get, how they react to your needs. You know, because some people feel like, well, you shouldn't have took the drug, so you get what you deserve, you know, and they may help some or they may not. And so, but with this particular lady, it took so long to get her back that I started FaceTiming the person that I work with from the health department, overdose prevention. Stacy, I'm FaceTiming her, and I'm like, hey, help me. I don't know what to do. Now, how she was supposed to help me on a FaceTime, I don't know, but she's always my go-to person. And the lady woke up, and when she woke up, she grabbed my arm and she grabbed my bracelets, and she wouldn't let them go. And then she started screaming at me, and I was like, but let me go. You know, I mean, like when they come out of it, they're mad at you. I got accused of stealing keys, all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? But I still don't want you to die.
Mama C, let me really quickly on the pause there, because Carter, I saw you shaking your head in agreement when Mama C said that if you call emergency and you tell them it's an overdose, that they may not come. Is that also a shared experience?
Not that they won't come, but that they do show up with a different attitude because of the way policing is intertwined with the war on drugs. They show up trying to, you know, get a little bit of that money for making a drug bust when really it is a medical emergency. So when we've had to call for a bus, I've always said the person has collapsed, they're grabbing their chest, we're afraid that maybe they had a heart attack. It's hot in this venue. We suspect heat stroke. There's discoloration. Depending on how much information they ask, I always default to heat stroke because then we get EMS as opposed to police being the initial responders. I pride myself on being a buffer between the police and my community. We have legislation written specifically about us, the RAVE Act in 1992 by Joe Biden, which extended crack house laws for the drug war into anywhere a rave was being hosted. So I'm very, very protective of people who use drugs in that context and anything to keep the police away from it. So yeah, definitely feel though, when I call 911, it is a medical emergency. It has nothing to do with drugs. Please just think of us.
That's really good information. So if a civilian does, you know, come across someone who they suspect or know is experiencing overdose symptoms, and Mama C, going back to what you said, like folks are typically bystander. I'm wondering how much of that is I don't know what to do, and so folks freeze up. So I think this is good information. I'm not saying that's the whole. Now I'm just saying, like, wondering if there's a piece of that. So if there's a piece of that I don't really know what to do, or maybe folks call and it is that they're saying, like, you know, this person is overdosing, and you know, like the paramedics or whoever takes forever to show up, or they send the police out first. That I think is good information to know, like, you know, instead of saying someone is overdosing or has overdosed, say that, you know, there have, you know, what were the words you used, Carter?
Just that maybe somebody's experiencing like some kind of medical emergency, like, you know, heart attack symptoms or heat stroke symptoms. Like I try to move as far away from it possibly being drugs as possible. Because EMS in Pittsburgh, they have Narcan, and then I forget the name of the drug. They just passed this recently, but since you've just been Narcaned and the opiates are out of your system, there's the initial drug before you can start methadone. They can actually start prescribing that from the ambulance. If somebody wants to get clean. It's lost on me now, but also to that, PA has pretty decent Good Samaritan laws. So even if the person with you consumed the drugs and you did it with them, you got decent protection if you like need to call EMS. So it's even better if you're a stranger that witnesses it. But there's a phenomenon, I can't remember what it's called. I wish my memory was better these days, where people stare at these instances and freeze because they assume someone else will step up and do it. Mm-hmm. And they wait for that other person to break the seal before they go, oh, okay, then I jump into action. But it's hard to get that initial person. I've experienced that myself, having a seizure in public where everyone else just assumes someone else would step up. Yeah. You got to be that person who steps up, even if you don't know what you're doing, because it breaks the seal to somebody else and it clicks with them and they get brave and maybe they have more information, but somebody has to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right about that. And I can't think of what it's called either, but it's a thing that happens that everyone assumes that someone else is going to call the police. So, it's taken care of. That is not the case. We always assume that there's no one else that's going to do it, because you just never know. Mama, so you also said that there's a way that you phrase when you call for EMS, that you don't say overdose. What do you say?
I found someone laying in the street, unresponsive, maybe a heart attack. Mm-hmm. I never, ever say, I learned that the hard way. And can I tell you a little story?
Absolutely.
So we're at House of Manna. And we're doing Friday Night Live. That's when we had gospel singer rappers out and stuff like that. So it's food, it's a lot of people. And 3 people overdose at the same time. And we're trying to help these people. Nobody wants to touch them because they're, people that live on the streets. Nobody wants to touch them. So I call and I say, we have 3 overdoses. And the police show up and they want to know their names. And they want to know who's with them. And I'm like, hey, you need to help us. And, so it was pretty traumatic. So from that, I just never say overdose. You know what I mean? And now that I'm telling it on this live, this show, I'll have somebody else call so they don't know it's me. He's calling for an overdose, but yeah, it gets really, and in our community, that's one of the reasons why I think that people don't help. One is they know that the police want to know, well, who was with this person, and you could end up having a drug case. The second thing is about the Good Samaritan. People don't know about that act. I have some cards that we made up and I hand them out to people telling them about the Good Samaritan Act. Like if this person dies, you cannot get in trouble. But what you can't get in trouble for is if you see this person in distress and you just leave. Mm-hmm. You will be in trouble for that. So we I guess that's part of our harm reduction. Just trying to get awareness to, you can help somebody. And I begged them, please don't get high. If you're getting high, could you please have some Narcan? And it's not going to do you any good if you're by yourself. So don't get high alone. Like I'm not out there preaching to people because I don't know what makes them use or I don't know. I don't know. But what I am preaching about is don't do it by yourself because self can't give yourself a hit of Narcan up your nose. You can't do it.
Absolutely. So, I'm sorry.
I was going to say that's something that a lot of people aren't aware of. I've found out that they can't Narcan themselves. They pick up the Narcan and they give it to their friend who is using. And unfortunately, they can't administer it themselves. It's the same with like paddles for your heart when your heart stops.
Yes.
Narcan starts your lungs again. And if you're choking, you can't Heimlich yourself. So teaching people to never use alone is the phrase that we use a lot. And we teach people how to stagger their use. If your friend does a line, wait 15 minutes, then you do a line so that you guys can resuscitate each other if need be. If you don't have the resources to test your drugs before you do them, always have a friend and Narcan. That's how you live through these things. And if you don't have a friend, there's a program, it's a call-in service called Never Use Alone. And you can have somebody on the phone with you. You give your location. And if you are unresponsive for so long, then they will call EMS to your location. And it's a volunteer service. So anyone interested in helping do that work, look them up, Never Use Alone, and be there to save someone's life potentially.
That's really cool. That is really cool. And also, I guess it just never dawned on me that you can't administer Narcan to yourself. Because I don't know how it works. So so that's one reason why it's never actually crossed my mind. But to know that makes a lot of sense. And it's also like, I feel like it's important. So like if you're a person who does use, like if you don't know how it works, having Narcan on you is helpful for someone else, but it would also, you would need someone to have Narcan on them for it to be
Well,
helpful.
here's where I can help you with that. The person that I work with, Stacy, we do trainings, and maybe we can get Stacy on the show to do a training because she has slides and everything. And we go to the bars and we do trainings. We did a barbershop school. We've done different places. Like if you call, we'll come out and train and bring supplies and everything.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And it would be great to have Stacey on. So perhaps we can organize that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch on one thing before I move on, but Mama, so you said something that's I think is really, really important, and I don't want to just breeze by it. Is you spoke very clearly about your community and the difference about when it's our community, meaning Black, versus any non-Black community. We already know how slow to respond the EMS is to begin with, and the police are to begin with. But then couple that with drug use, drug overdose, then I could only imagine that response time drags even more or shows up with, rather than support, being more so criminalization and enforcement. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, it's not a medical emergency when it comes to Homewood. That's the only place it's not a medical emergency. It's a crime, and that's why if I'm helping somebody, and I'm on the third Narcan, and they're not two yet. I'm like, who's with this person? If y'all have drugs, please leave. I'm going to call for help. Only God knows what's going to show up, And we're not going to make no secret that I'm not a real fond person of the police anyway. So I really, really try to help the person before I have to call. And like I said, I don't call the police, but that's usually what shows up in our community.
Yeah, it's such a shame that that's just the case across the board, right? But it's like when we are at our most vulnerable, like that seems to be the time that we're criminalized the most. So I'll say that, and we can move on from that. I'm curious, Mama C, about what got you into prevention work, and I'm also curious about how you got into working with our folks in captivity.
Well, how I got into prevention work, I got some double digits clean. And I just hate the way people that use get treated. Like I never got treated bad because nobody never really knew. I always had money. I always had a car. I always had a home. I always had nice clothes. Nobody knew. But my brothers and sisters on the Ave, they might not be clean. You know what I mean? And people treat them like, so I would just go down there and stand on the corner, and the guys would be doing whatever they was doing, and I would be slinging condoms and Narcan and information. I get some money or some gift cards. I'm handing out gift cards, and some kind of way, Stacy from the health department found out about it, and I met her in a meeting, and she said, "Mama C, let me help you." And I was like, "Well, what can you help me do?" Because I wasn't getting enough. I wasn't getting the Narcan the way I needed it. So I was getting it sporadically, a box here and there, you know what I mean? And it was like, some of these people, some people were just falling out. Like we were having a very, very bad summer, and everybody was ODing everywhere. And she said, "Well, let me help you out." And she helped me out, and bam, here I am. Now I'm on billboards, harm reduction.
Yes. Yes. How long ago was that?
I've been doing this for at least 5 years. 5 years, because I started out. Yeah, it's been about 5 years.
Okay.
So,
Now, what came first? Was it the working with folks in captivity, or was it overdose prevention?
our loved ones in captivity came first because my son is serving life without the possibility of parole, and I it was nobody to talk to about it. Like I didn't know that these organizations like Let's Get Free, and fam, I didn't know that these organizations, because who talks about stuff like that? And so my son, he got a pamphlet or something, and he sent it to me, and he said, "Mom, they're having a rally. Why don't you go to the rally? Call these people." So I called the number, and Susie South answered the phone and was like, "Hey, yeah, Miss Carol." I mean, she acted like she known me forever. And her and Etta came and picked me up, and off we went to Harrisburg. And so I wasn't alone anymore. So that's how that started, because I was trying to advocate for him alone by myself, and I found out that if you're just in my situation, everybody's not the same, but in my situation, advocating for just him was not going to work, and so I started speaking for other people, and then all of a sudden something really wild happened. I started getting these letters from my son's friends, my daughter's friends, some friends of mine, a relative, this, and that. I deal with closely 100 men, and most of them are from Allegheny County and from Homewood, East Hills, and Garfield. That's retarded. That's ridiculous. So yeah.
And so, what do you do with your work with our family in captivity?
With those guys, because I only deal with guys, because Etta does the women, and she does an excellent job over there with the women. She does guys too, because trust me, there's more than enough. Like anybody want to come help, call Etta or Carol. Anyway, but I send them. I started off just going to rallies and going to speak to the representatives, because I'm what they call a dual victim, but I don't feel like I'm a victim. That's giving somebody too much power. Like maybe, I don't know. I got to think about it, but not a victim. But I lost my son in 2010 and my grandson in 2013. So how do you advocate to end death by incarceration, but you have somebody murdered? Sheesh, that was hard. Like I really, really had to dig deep down and then that wasn't good enough, and so I had to take it to God, and I had to I had to get spiritual with it because like um some the people responsible for my son and my grandson's murder are from my community. So like I know their people. I know them. You know what I mean? So how do you do this? And it's really hard, and it takes a lot of upkeeping to
Mhm.
to stay that way. But I don't. What I do know is I don't ever want to see anybody spend the rest of their life incarcerated because it's basically just like being the ancestors on a slave ship. The way that they're packed in places and the food and just the whole thing. It's just some modern slave ships.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't want anybody else to be harmed because to plan a funeral for your child, to buy that last outfit, to go through writing obituaries and stuff, it's the worst thing in the world. Like I don't. Hey, I'm on an interview, please. Thank you. So it's like the worst thing. I wouldn't wish it on anybody for anything. I don't care.
Yeah.
So yeah. Did I answer you?
Yeah. So I heard you say you had started out, going to the rallies after connecting with Etta, um, and it sounds like that has since flowered into something else. Both being in acknowledging that you're a mother who has a son who's in captivity for the rest of his life, and another son whose life was cut short.
I have
And
to wait. I have to correct. Yeah, I have to correct you on that. They think he's there for the rest of his life.
mm,
It's not going to happen. We get it's little steps,
mm.
but we getting there.
Got you. Got you. Well, let me correct myself. You have a son who is currently in captivity, whose life story is not going to end there, and another son whose life was cut short um, and taken from him in you all. So standing in that dual role is where you are now. So I'm curious about what does it look like a day in life in your work with Ukombozi, the name of your organization, supporting our loved ones in captivity.
Hmm. So I send out holiday cards, and I got a card back from a guy that said he hadn't gotten a card in 17 years, and I was like 17 years, and he had been in jail for like 30 years, and he said that all his family had died out except for one sibling, and that his birthday was coming up, so maybe the sibling would send him a birthday card. So of course that sent I started sending birthday cards.
Mm,
I take phone calls. I emails, letters.
mm,
If they get in touch with me and they feel like they're being abused or harmed, I have a connection with the prison society. I link them up with that. Alan right away gets right on it and takes care of the situation. Um, some of the guys are artists. They send me their artwork. I show it when I can, and they get 100% of the money. Um, I frame it, I tote it around. Some of it's really beautiful. And I think it's a shame that you people out there be trying to give me $10 for a great big canvas. Like, it's ridiculous because it's really everything is more expensive in prison than it is out here. And so for them to get canvas and paints and pencils and I mean it's really really hard. You
mhm.
know, I see my friend Cynthia is on there. Her brother is serving life too. Cynthia does she sends out puzzles. So it's like the littlest things you think they're just a little thing, but it's a great big thing to a person to get, get puzzles, to get cards. I send books. Um, I was doing video visits, but the DOC is upset with me right now, and they canceled all my visits for a year. They think I'm fighting on that too,
Mm-hmm.
because that's another story. I don't know if you want to hear it, but they can be really, really cruel to you when you go to visit your loved ones. Really cruel, and just just make it so uneasy or so uncomfortable that you don't want to go back.
Mm-hmm.
But people like me, we go back.
Mm-hmm. I do want to come back to that because, yeah, the abuses from and for some reason that made me think about how the I don't know if where how it's set up everywhere else, but in Allegheny County court, um, I'm thinking about how hot it is, like how the elements are always made to be uncomfortable, like when you're waiting. We were recently at the courthouse for one of our activist comrades, and it was so hot in the hallways. There's no air moving around in or out. Inside of the courtrooms are perfectly air conditioned.
Mm-hmm.
Outside in the hallways, it was so hot and humid and inclement. And you know that's bad design, and like like and that has me thinking about like how folks who are captive are treated so inhumanely, treated like they're not people, and literally disappeared. And then the rest of society is taught to think of like, yeah, these are not people; these are criminals now, and so they don't deserve to be treated like human beings. You don't need to treat these people like human beings anymore. And that's how, I mean, if we're going to be honest about it, that's how society treats folks who are in captivity, like they're not people. And so I say all that to say is that, like, I really think what you do, Mama C, is so beautiful because you're literally humanizing people who should have never been dehumanized in the first place. And I think that's amazing. Like, these are not small gestures. They feel like they're small gestures, but they're not. They're really, really, I mean, life saving to just to know that someone else knows that you're real, that you're
That's
real.
why I take their artwork out, because a monster could not have done this. An animal cannot have done this.
Mm.
And so, because it actually started as a conversation piece, just to have the artwork to show the people this guy is serving life. He didn't even kill anybody, and he just was with somebody, and he's like, look at this, this is beautiful, and
Yeah.
sometimes it helps, sometimes.
Yeah, I've of course seen your artwork. You actually had many of it displayed at the drop-in center in McKeesport that we had for over a year and a half, and that was really cool. I believe there was it a few pieces were sold from there?
Yes, we sold a couple pieces from there. I sell a piece here and there. I'm really needing to. We're looking for a home.
Mm,
We're looking for a space where it can be, um, like in a dropping center,
yeah,
preferably with a great big window. so so you could just, when you go past the window, you see them, bam, 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 and that's why I take their pictures too. You
yeah,
know, if they send me a picture, I blow up their pictures. The poster says, like, some of the pictures back there,
yeah,
and I take them around with me.
yeah. And they're beautiful pieces. I mean, absolutely stunning. These are really talented people, right? Like, I mean, but people. Um, I am curious about where, because Pittsburgh being a really artsy type town, I'm wondering about like how folks will have art hanging in coffee shops, etc. If there are homes available for the artwork that you have, and so that for one thing, the guys can get um, the right type of wage for the work that they put in. As you said, like it takes a lot of money, time, resource for someone who is captive to even get the art supplies in the first place, let alone creating the art. So $10 is ridiculous. Like that's a slap in the face. You might as well not say anything. Like that's like proposing you pay negative dollars like for this artwork, you know what I mean? As opposed to putting the artwork up in places where, you know, the stated price is what it's actually worth, not only what the person, what our family put in, but also what the actual artwork is worth, so that they can, you know, sustain life. Um, but thinking about that. But yeah, I think that's absolutely amazing, what you do, right? Like, cause we're so conditioned to not see people who are captive, like, and not see them as people, and to dehumanize them and demonize them, like, you know, like we're so conditioned to treat folks poorly, in those circumstances, and let's not touch on the fact that so many folks are incarcerated and they shouldn't be incarcerated. So many people are incarcerated because they're disabled, etc. Right? Like disabled, black, female, you know, like struggling with something, and for some reason they're in jail, like, or in prison,
Mhm.
which is ridiculous. Mama, so you had mentioned that you're at odds with the DOC currently. I'm kind of curious about what that is. If you're interested in talking about it.
Yeah, so I went to visit my son, who's at SCI Dallas, which is 5.5 hours away. And along with me was my husband and my granddaughter. So when we got on property, we got waved over by some officers. So we pull over. So right away, whose car is this? Who's the now my husband's driving. Why wouldn't you assume that it was his car? Which it wasn't, it was a rental. But it was just like, how did that where did that come from? So I'm like, okay, I better not say nothing. And so he said, waved us over, told us to get out the car. Well, you know, I'm in a motorcycle club, and my colors were in the back in a little case with a lot of sunglasses. I'm a freak for sunglasses. That's another story too. But anyway, so he's throwing my stuff all over the place, and I just turned my back and walked away because I know I know me. You know me too. So he says he wants to go in our purses. So go in the purses. So he says he smells marijuana in my granddaughter's purse. So um, he went and he got something to test with. I'm assuming it came back negative because he walked off with it to his car. And when he walked off to the car, I said, "Hey, if that's a test, you let it be known that you walked out of our eyesight with this test." So he came back and he said that he wanted to search with the dog. All right. So he takes our purses and he throws them on the ground. But as he throws them on the ground, he throws something black at my granddaughter's purse. Um, the dog comes out, he gets a hit on her purse. So he keeps he grabs whatever the officer grabs whatever the dog has in his mouth, and he takes the dog back to the car. He puts him up, and he comes back and he starts drilling us about somebody was smoking weed, and you had weed in here, and this, that, and the other. So me, I really feel bad because at this point, I'm seeing that they're not going to let me see my son. I haven't seen my son physically in almost 3 years because of the pandemic. So I'm like kind of pleading with them. Like, you're not even seeing Mama C at this moment. Like, I'm gonna just give it to you funky. I don't know no other way to be. I'm in straight slave mode. I'm
Mhm.
like begging Massa, please let me see my son. This is how I'm acting in front of my husband and my granddaughter. And so he's being very forceful and saying to us, well, she must have had weed in there sometime at some time. So
Right.
I'm like, maybe if she says she had weed in there, he'll let us go. But it's nothing in there now. So I said, did you have weed in there, Nina? She was like, yeah, a couple of weeks ago. And he said, yes, I knew it. I knew it. You're going home. And I said, going home. I said, wait a minute. You know, and I started begging him, please don't do that. You know, and I'm telling him I haven't seen my son. And my granddaughter is standing there and she just busts out in tears because she haven't seen her father in this long. You know what I mean? So we're like I'm in a panic. He laughed in my face, Shannon. I still was begging him, right? Please don't call. He said, no, I'm going to call up to the prison. And if the shift commander says you can get in, then you can get in, but you're going home. And so he came back and said, visit cancel. And I said, why would you do that? I said, what kind of person are you? Why would you do that? And he turned around and told me, shouldn't let your kids smoke weed. Well, guess who popped out? Angry Empress. And he was every name underneath the book. Okay, so because I cursed them out, they canceled my visits for a year with everybody and all DOCs. Okay, but when they suspected the weed, there's things that they have in their books that you're supposed to do. You know what I mean? And at the least thing they were supposed to do was to let me visit my son, but we weren't not a contact visit, like behind glass. I didn't get any options that are their rules and their rule book. So we're gonna be rumbling about that for a while. And I'm gonna tell you something. I lost 15 pounds. I haven't eaten. I'm just out, and I'm gonna tell you, it's not so much that I didn't get to see my son. It's that I have a photo of this man. You can see him smiling, like he really got enjoyment off of hurting us. And like, you know I'm 66 years old and I'm a black woman, and racism. I mean, racism is racism, but when it's blatant right in your face, it's still so it's non-believable. Like I'm like this. Like, why do people act like this?
Wow, that is like
That was a lot, right?
the fact that it happened is a lot. Like that is like animalistic. Like like that is savagery. That is pure savagery. Do you have this officer's name?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I do. And but what I did was I called got in touch with some of my comrades because you see, my loved ones in captivity been in the law library for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So I got with them and said, hey, this is what happened. How can you help me? So we wrote a letter to the superintendent of SCI dollars, and he wrote me back. Oh, okay, the letter stated what happened. Then it states their rules. Then it states what happened. Then it states their rules. Because at one point, I had asked the guard if he would bring the dog back out of the car and to ear search us and the car because we had no contraband.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have any drugs, and he wouldn't do it. So we wrote him. We wrote the letter in sections. What happened, what y'all say, what happened, what your rule is. Mm-hmm. And the superintendent wrote me back and said, well, yeah, you're right about this, and you're right about that. But because you said what you said to him, is why I canceled your visits and I'm not restoring them. So it's okay for them to be mean and disrespectful and hateful to me because I ain't nobody.
But for you to give it back, and that's an actionable offense, even though we do have the First Amendment.
It's 6 o'clock.
Not as far as the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections feels. It's what they say. Listen, I used to fight with the Secretary Wexel because I felt like he was just being lazy and just sat back and let people do what they wanted to do in all the prisons. And so one time our conversation was, well, wait a minute. So we're looking at Burger King or McDonald's or Macy's or any store, Sam's Club. They're ran a certain way. You cannot make what is that? A McMuffin any other kind of way but the way they say to make a McMuffin. Mm-hmm. Each store does not do what they wanted to do. Each facility does whatever they want to do and never being held accountable, because who's there to hold them accountable? Mm-hmm. They don't have anybody to watch over them. The DOC, parole and pardon, probation officers, they kind of like out there. Like, you really got to cause up a stink. I mean, there is somebody over them, but who pays attention to junkies and murderers and rapists and thieves, and like, who cares?
There was something that you had said earlier, Mama C. You had when you were talking about he did some tests and then walked away. I'm curious about those tests. Carter, do you have any insight on those tests that she's talking about?
Oh, yes. And boy, do police love these tests. Independent studies have shown 1 in 3 failure rates, and they count on that. There is a growing list of substances that popped positive for drugs, including Krispy Kreme sugar from a donut, where a man spent 9 months in jail for methamphetamine because they popped positive. There is no reagent testing that tests for this wide array of substances that it says it tests for. DanceSafe itself, who has the market on reagent field testing, there are 9 steps in the tests to properly identify, none of which is psilocybin, marijuana, none of that. So the police are literally counting on these to fail so that they can go after you. And as far as the smell, I wanted to address that. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Barr, the Supreme Court ruled that odor alone is not enough for a warrantless search.
Yeah, but you're talking about police officers, and now you're talking about officers of the Department of Correction. Like, although they should live under the same rules, they do not.
Got it.
But legally, should they? Like, are they held to the same standard legally?
Who gonna hold them to the standard? You know what I mean? But when they get this lawsuit, when they get these lawsuits, because I was talking to another person. I asked her, when I went to Harrisburg to the rally, I took a picture of her husband with me. And I was thinking about her, and I said, "Hey, Nancy, did you see me with JVR in Harrisburg?" She said, "I did. I commented on the picture. I'm on my way to a visit." When she got out the visit, she called me, and she said, "Hey, they got mad at me at the visit." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Because they were playing with their wedding rings back and forth. And I guess he might have been looking for a ring or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? He's in jail. She ain't. No telling what, you know what I mean? But they were playing with the rings. Well, she lost her visits for a year because they said that they switched wedding bands.
What?
Same jail. So let me be clear about something. When COVID hit and we went to virtual, I was like, "Ooh, this is a good thing, but this is a horrible, horrible thing," because they had been trying to figure out how to stop contact visits, because they say that we bring in drugs, but it's their guards that have been fired, gone to jail, and so on and so forth for bringing drugs in the jail. So it's an ongoing thing, and it's sad, and I don't know. But I'm a fighter, and until I can't breathe, if I think I'm right, you're in a rumble.
Yes, as it should be. That's insane, and I'm glad. Thank you, Carter, for that link there. I shared the link for the case that Carter just mentioned. Um, yeah, if you are, I don't want to speak too much on because this is ongoing. But if you are pursuing more things, let me know so I can support it as I can. Um,
Can I go back to the drug piece for a minute?
Absolutely.
Um, Overdose prevention piece. It seems to be a problem with the schools having Narcan in their schools or having overdose prevention in their schools, and I think that everybody that because you can't overdose from Narcan. If you're having a heart attack and you take Narcan, it does not kill you. It does not. It reverses opioid overdose. That's it. That's all. So it can't hurt you. They use it on infants. They have used it. Am I right, Carter? They have used it on infants that have gotten into or just touched fentanyl or whatever, and revived them. So it cannot hurt. It can only help.
Some
And
people don't realize that epidurals are fentanyl. If you get misdosed with your epidural, no, this is why Narcan existed for like these little mess ups that occur when like no, someone doesn't know they have a carfentanil allergy in a hospital. You get to reverse it. You know, it's the same as an EpiPen in that setting. That only started being available to the public because outside of a medical setting, there was a call for it. So yeah, I've heard of people Narcaning their dogs because their dogs have consumed their drugs. Like I could Narcan myself on camera right now, and the worst that's going to happen is it tastes like Windex. That's it. I don't have opiates in my system. It doesn't do anything. It can only help. It can't hurt.
Oh wow, I did
so
not
I
know
think we should call the schools and ask them politely, why is Narcan not allowed into these schools? Because I heard, which I don't know how true it is because I haven't seen it in the paper on Facebook except for with Amber, that somebody had a gummy bear and it had fentanyl on it last week. If you look on Amber's page, you'll see where she was talking about it. And I think it was Amber, but anyway, yeah, it was Amber. And but you don't hear anything about these things. They try to sweep certain things underneath the rug, and it should be fentanyl, and I mean fentanyl. It should be Narcan in these schools. There's a farm across the street from Westinghouse High School. There's a box over there, and it has Narcan, condoms. I don't know. It has all kinds of stuff in there. And it says, plain as day, it's about this big. Narcan,
Mm.
Ukombozi.
Mm.
And like we're
I think I definitely agree. And if I had to guess why it's not in the schools, because folks don't want to admit or associate drug use or drug overdose with kids. Like it's just one of those things that people just don't want to talk about and acknowledge as a real thing. But I definitely agree that it should not only be available, but it should be normalized and taught to the kids of how to use it. Like I said, I had no idea how Narcan works. I didn't know that you couldn't self-administer it because I wasn't aware of like the whole
no, you
process.
can't self-administer.
Right. I just learned this today with y'all. Like, and so if I didn't know, I'm sure there's plenty of other people, so I don't feel as bad. But and beyond like just the kids themselves, but they have parents, they have older siblings, they have friends. They should know how to use this life-saving medical device. Like why not? The same way we're taught how to administer CPR, etc. And I'm also, of course, thinking about our young man from last week, from our show last week, Raven Palmer's son, who was drugged against his knowledge in the school. Now, wasn't fentanyl, Suboxone, but just thinking about like how, quite frankly, easy it is for drugs to get into schools in the circumstances where there the possibility of overdose happening at the school. Why would you not have Narcan there? Like it makes sense to me.
I don't know. They may think that they have to pay for it but I'm sure that they can get a grant to get it for free.
You
you
know,
know, and we don't have no books anyway, so we might as well put some Narcan in there. You know,
I mean, if somebody like me off the street could get the Pennsylvania Commission for Crime and Delinquency First Responders Grant, where I send out an email and 288 boxes are at my door, there is no excuse for these schools to not have it stocked and even do light distribution. Parents that approach me that say, hey, my kid's coming to that age. How do I talk to them about this?
Mm-hmm.
I always tell them, don't accuse your kids of doing drugs. Say, hey, I know you guys are experimenting. I'm worried about your friends. I'm giving you this and teaching you how to use it so you can keep your friends safe, because I'm worried, and you're the one that hangs out with your friends and you know what's going on in your circles. So that way the kids don't close up and be like, oh no, my parents think I'm doing drugs, or they know I'm doing drugs. You take it off the individual and then they figure out how they want to do that. But there's no reason why these schools can't do Narcan distribution. And they honestly cannot act like the county or even the state wouldn't be down to help them for free. That grant is so accessible. Like, it's literally a survey off of like the Pennsylvania government website.
Mm-hmm.
It's stupid easy to get. They want you to have this. So maybe there's something there of us getting into schools and, you know, teaching them about this. If they can have paddles on site to revive kids, they can have Narcan on site to get their lungs going again.
and that's one of the things I liked about Tay's organization, because he taught those kids about that, and those children were coming to your organization, Shannon. And what I heard a little girl, and you can ask Tay because he was there. She ran back in and said, "Oh, I forgot to grab my Narcan. Might have to save my mom again."
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and then you got to hurry up and fix your face because you don't want to be shocked and scared, you know, or make the kid feel some kind of way or anything. You know, harm reduction. Get it together. You know what I mean? And like, they want to know. They want to help. You know, they know that they be having them parties, and it might not be them, but they friends. I give away so many of those bags. I got these color bags, and they have Narcan and condoms, and some of them had gun locks in them and fentanyl test strips. Maybe out of 100 people, 3 out of 100 young people, 3 might not take it.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed this younger generation is super pro harm reduction.
Mm-hmm.
There's a variety of age demographic in the rave community. We have people as old as 45 to some of these kids are 20, 21. And I service these 2 different events because there's different tastes in music. And these bass kids, I mean, 4, 5, 6 fentanyl strips at a time. They're taking 3 or 4 boxes of Narcan because they know somebody. But like, I'm noticing a lot with this older generation is we all survived doing drugs in our youth. We're not afraid of it, but these younger kids are hyper aware that something is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
They are willing to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect these kids for it. And I always tell them they're brave. When I hear somebody say that they had a Narcan, a sibling or a parent, I go, that was super brave. I know how scary it is.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling after it? Because I think a lot of people don't realize how traumatic it is to Narcan somebody, no matter how many times you've done it. Every single time you're like, oh, that person's life was in my hands. So I always check in with the person that had to administer it, especially for kids. Like, are you doing okay? Because there's nothing more traumatic than hearing that last breath leave their bodies and knowing that you're the one with the tools to bring them back. Yeah, it's rough seeing the kids, but they're so educated and they're so aware and they're so willing to jump into action to help that the narrative is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get those overdose numbers down one way or another.
Yeah.
So we're going to all call the school board too.
I'm in.
Where is the Narcan? Where is the Narcan?
I'm in. Let's get a team together.
All right.
Yes, beautiful things happen on the CEO's podcast every week. I'm so here for it. And special shout out to Wildback, Devontae. Johnson, who was mentioned a moment ago, and his students are absolutely amazing. Those kids are just so special, and special in the ways that people are special. But I've had the pleasure of meeting them and getting to know them and see how they engage. And YBAC does a really, really great job of creating safe environments for their young adults, for their youth and young adults, for providing education, important education like how to use Narcan. Also, what did they do? They did trauma informed care training for the kids. Like just such special work. YBAC, and tell you if I get it wrong, beat me up later. Voices in Action Collective. I think I got it right. Pretty sure I got it right. I'm not great with the acronyms, but you should definitely check them out because they are doing really, really beautiful work. Beautiful work. Well, we are at 6:16, and I really appreciate Mama C. I saw that 6 o'clock roll around. I was like, she's still hanging with me. Oh yeah, she's still with me.
Because you made this really comfortable, and it just like she knows what I'm talking about. Like she feels. Wait, you don't mind me calling you she, do you? Okay.
She is fine. I go by either.
I got in trouble. I just call you Carter, but because I got in trouble with that because I'm like, wait. But anyway, it's like it just made it easier with Carter being there because she knows what I'm talking about. She's been there. She, we do the same thing. She's just over there on that side of town. I'm over here. So it was easy. Thank you.
Not a problem. This was lovely, and it's nice to hear the voice beyond the picture I get in my news feed of you from the Allegheny County Health Department. It's great work. It's us individuals, and it was a pleasure to meet you. It really was.
Thank you. Same. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yay! I'm glad I was able to bring you two together. This day was always happening. It was always coming. It was in the stars.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate Mama C, you coming on and sharing your story and your work. Beautiful work. I've always, of course, known of Ukombozi, and I've known of the art, the prison artwork, which is super dope. But I did not realize the depth of care and rehumanization that you do with Ukombozi. So I really appreciate the fact that you do that because it's always laid really heavy on my heart to know that, man, there's all of these prisons and all of the people behind them have literally been disappeared. And we're all okay with it, right? Like our society is so okay with these are no longer people. These are our criminals, our captives. And so the fact that you go out of your way to make sure that people know that they're alive and that other people see them and are alive, but you're engaging, you're making sure that they have communication, that they have love, that they have support, legal support and otherwise. Like you're just like, hey, I'm a person. Like, what's up? Like, that just goes such a long way.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm surprised they haven't called because I told them, and I'm like, because usually if I say, hey, I'm going to a rally or hey, I'm doing this, like somebody will call. Nobody's called, so I don't know.
Well, they'll catch it on the rerun.
Yeah.
Carter, thank you so much for joining me today. I know I hit you out the clear blue, but you, along with Mama C, are some of the people that I watch. I watch everybody, like, let's be clear. But, there are folks who stick out to me based on their care, consideration, and dedication to the work and knowledgeability. Like, you're so knowledgeable about the work and you share that, so freely. And I appreciate it because I be learning, child. I don't know nothing about nothing. So anybody that I can learn from, I'm like, yes. Come on, come through. So I really appreciate you, answering the call and coming on and joining Mama C here today.
Anytime. I'll rearrange my schedule and always show up for you anytime you ask. I love you. Yep.
All right, y'all. Well, I appreciate y'all. That will be it for today. To join us next week, we're going to have another special guest who has just launched some exciting things, but we'll speak on that more when the time comes. Y'all be good.